Education is one of the most powerful tools that we have, not just to understand the past, but to shape the future. And when it comes to the Holocaust and genocide, that responsibility does not end in the classroom. It continues in museums, in community spaces, on college campuses, anywhere people are willing to listen, ask questions, and engage with difficult history. Neal Dalzell is a high school teacher in the greater Montreal area who says his students are quite receptive to discussions about hatred, racism, prejudice, and genocide.
Oh, they're very receptive. I would say that they are, unfortunately, historically, often not aware enough to be able to grasp the full extent of what we're talking about. Of course, this is not lived experience for them for the most part. So,
Right.
history always sort of suffers from its distance from children, and so we do our best to make it come alive. And there's certainly a lot of footage, unfortunately, but fortunately for education, there's a lot of documentary footage, certainly of the Holocaust, which is another reason why I start with it. There's such excellent material out there to. We visited the Montreal Holocaust Museum as a class, and it's always extremely eye opening and very emotional for them to see these things. So they're endlessly curious, as teenagers should be, and I think that they're always capable of dealing with it. I do like to bring it down to their level and ask them to use this course to diagnose the roots of hatred. Really, where do we see hatred and the seeds of hatred being planted? Where do you see tolerance, or I should say intolerance, increasing, or tolerance of violence increasing? Where do we see it as where people say something and people don't even bat an eyelash and say, well, yeah, that person deserves that kind of talk, that kind of treatment. And you start to notice where language and conversations start to drift into violence. Um, and at first we laugh. And I think that's usually, as they said, that first they come for the comedians. It's the first signs is paying attention to how we speak about each other. And I think they see it as my grade 11s. We even talk about how they treat middle school students, and you see it. It's not hatred, but you see it as sort of privilege. They have a sense of privilege. They have a sense of somewhat superiority, and you don't sit at the back of the bus. That's my seat. And you start to see open discrimination and elements of violence. And we do have interesting thought experiments with when I ask them. I say, okay, so what if a grade 7 comes on the bus tomorrow morning and sits in your seat? What are you going to do? And it's interesting to see how far they'll go with their sense of privilege, and how far they will demonize and dehumanize that student just in talking. I'll ask them, so why can't that student sit there? And the justification, of course, involves saying, well, they didn't earn it. They're not welcome there. They're not one of us. They are, and you start to see how the language of othering and eventually of potential violence becomes sort of the structure gets built.
For the descendants of Holocaust survivors, it often feels more than important, crucial, to share their parents' and their grandparents' story. And that's exactly what Stacy Seltzer feels.
So my grandparents are such a huge part of who I am. So to be able to honor them and share their stories and continue to educate and learn from the experiences that they went through means everything to me. This is really a place where I devote so much of my time, and I feel so grateful to be able to. And the next generation, I have a daughter right now who just started sharing my grandparents' stories herself. So she is 12, and that is something that she's been doing. My niece also last year started sharing. So two of the next generation in our family is
Well,
beginning to get involved in a really beautiful way. And no, my grandmother is still alive. We're very fortunate. And my grandfather just passed away about a year and a half ago. So they knew them, right? They know them. And that's been a really beautiful piece. We can still ask her questions.
right. And how did your looking back, how did your grandfather feel about it, about you being involved in 3G?
they have both been very proud, and that has given me such courage to continue doing the work. And I was able, very fortunately, when I shared my stories in recent years, to do it in front of them. And so I'm presenting his story and her story, and they're in the front row. And
Wow.
it gave me just it allowed me to realize that afterwards I could say to them, did I miss anything? Did I say anything incorrectly? Right? Like, and they both were able to share with me that, this is really what happened. These are absolutely historically correct. And as they got older and it got harder for them to share, really it's a privilege to be able to do it.
Now, how did your grandfather and how does your grandmother react to what's in the news, the growing levels of anti-Semitism everywhere?
It's hard. Right? It's really hard. She just turned 97, so she is not watching the news the way she was, years ago.
Right.
And I think that's probably better. But it's hard to see, and especially my grandfather before he passed away. I mean, he knew and he was watching it. And they would always just say, like, keep doing what you're doing and let's continue to educate and share, right? That's all you can do.
And how do your parents feel about what you're doing and what your daughter is doing?
They're thrilled. I mean, my parents set a beautiful example for me. I went and watched them speak when I was younger. My mom's always been such a beautiful role model. So to see what that meant to her, and her relationship to my grandparents was so strong that, it's really special for me to be able to continue that legacy.
Mollie Bowman is the managing director of Living Links, an organization working to connect and support descendants of survivors across the United States. The work that they do is truly incredible.
There are fewer than 200,000 Holocaust survivors left living in the world. I grew up with the privilege of hearing my grandmother speak every year to my class and share her story as an Auschwitz survivor. And I think I took for granted that she would always be here to tell it. And when she passed away, it just it occurred to me I no longer could pick up the phone and call her and ask her questions. I could no longer count on her to speak to, classrooms or groups of friends. And as I think about, growing my own family, I couldn't count on her being there to show up for, our kids' future lesson plans about the Holocaust. So Living Links is this incredible organization that steps in to fill the gap. Um, as the power of hearing a survivor tell their story means that you hear a witness, you become a witness, and you can carry the lessons and the mission of these legacies alive and carry them forward. And Living Links engages descendants, mostly 3Gs or grandchildren of survivors, to learn their grandparents' stories. We have a speaker training class to teach them how to tell them to classrooms and other community organizations. We have lesson plans that accompany our speakers to classrooms, working with experts in the field of Holocaust education. And we are building a community of 3Gs across the country. We have 3G affiliates in 25 different cities, all engaged locally in their local school systems and in relationship with each other, who are devoted to keeping this mission and their family stories alive.
Let's hear from Judith Wertheim now.
My dad had been doing it for a while, and I live here in Cincinnati. We have an incredible Holocaust and Humanities Center here. So the group here, the Holocaust and Humanities Center, reached out to the group that my dad was working with via email. They said, look, it's COVID. We can get speakers from anywhere. Do you want to do an online presentation? Well, my dad's response was, well, my daughter lives in Cincinnati. I bet she would do it. So he roped me in. That being said, he knows me well. Like, he knows that similar to him, I got this gift from him of like, we're comfortable speaking in front of groups. But more than that, he knows that I care about Holocaust education. I care deeply about just learning from this great tragedy. And through that, kind of seeing the upstandards, seeing the justice we can put out into this world. So, hey, if I can share my grandfather's story as part of that and share about my family, part of sharing his story is I end on a big picture from his last birthday party that we had of all me and my cousins, his great grandchildren, because it's not too far to say that his favorite part of his legacy was his family. Um, Amongst all the other amazing things, I mean, he had a lot of achievement, but he was definitely a family oriented person and he encouraged us to do the same. But I have great admiration for my grandfather, and to be able to do this it's a small thing I can do.
Willie Handler, who we heard from in a previous episode this season, has written a book, Growing Up with Holocaust Survivor Parents, and he told me why he chose to write the book.
Writing is a very, very powerful tool, used properly. And so I thought that's my best way of reaching out to many people. And my writing is probably read more by non-Jews than Jews. And that's always my goal. Who I want to reach out to is reach out and look for allies, because talking to just other Jewish people, and especially descendants, is really just an echo chamber.
Before we wrap up this episode and this season, I wanted to take a moment to thank everyone who appeared on Chosen for What this season. Every memory, every story, every voice played a crucial role in turning this podcast into a reality. Let's end with an inspiring message from Dorothy Goldwyn in Memphis, Tennessee.
I'm going to speak till the day I cannot speak, and I think my children will too, because the actual survivors are not able to, most of them now. There's very few left, and we can never forget. That's the bottom line. We can never forget. And with all the rhetoric of the Holocaust didn't happen or the Jews didn't have it this way or that way, we must continue to speak. We must continue to show what happened before and try and keep it from happening again. A little discouraging at the present time, but it will never stop me, and I will continue to do it more. And as when someone asks me, like I heard this podcast, I was asked to do it. I'm a little nervous about it at first. I'm fine, I can talk, but it's not a fun thing that I'm going out to a party or something. But yet, I feel when I'm asked, I'm going to do it, and when I'm not asked, I'm going to find places that want me to talk. So,
Now,
and I want
many
kids to know. I want children, and there's a lot of Hispanic kids in school, and I talk to them about, are you second gen? How do you feel? I felt that way when I was your age.
Right.
So if I can relate, and I've noticed that in speaking that, if I can change one person, and I've helped change several people's perspective. I had a young African American girl in high school that had such bitterness and hate to what happened to her ancestors. And she kept asking me, how can you be so positive? How can you keep saying this and that? And we talked afterward, and I said, you know what? You can spend your life being bitter and not doing anything, but you're not doing what your ancestors fought for. They fought for you to have a good life. So you're
Right.
wasting it. You need to get it together. And so if I can change one person, I feel like I'm changing the world.
If you liked what you heard today, please be sure to rate, follow, or subscribe to Chosen for What, wherever you get your podcasts, to make a donation or to learn more about the Foundation for Genocide Education. Visit their website at gened.org. Don't worry, the link can be found in the show notes. For the Foundation for Genocide Education, I'm Tommy Schnurmacher. Until next time.